Good morning, good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to my presentation on the Dutch intervention in Bali. So I hope to relate this topic about the Netherlands back to week 10 on intervention and also touch on week 16 about colonialism. To begin, I thought I'd provide a brief history of the Dutch influence in Indonesia. So the Dutch have had influence in Indonesia longer than any country, being around 347 years if you add their control. The Netherlands also had expeditions in the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th century, so that proves that they were very resilient there and didn't give it a rest. And just recently in 1949, the Netherlands were forced out due to countless rebellions in the islands of Bali and the surrounding ones. The map on the right, where it is highlighted in red, shows where the Netherlands first touched down and where they were most heavily active in Indonesia. The Dutch motives for intervening were similar to why any other country would intervene in a foreign territory. So to begin, the Dutch arrived in Indonesia in 1595 looking for natural resources and a place to take over. And the person that found it is pictured on the right. His name's Cornelius de Houtman, and he was the first expeditioner to find Bali and surrounding islands. With the Netherlands already being one of the world's largest trading powers, setting up ports in the East Indies was crucial to their trade business. The Dutch planned to monopolize the sources of valuable nutmeg, cloves, and cubeb pepper on the islands. This is similar to what Portugal and Spain had been doing for years previously, as they already had influence in Indonesia. Along with the natural resources, the Netherlands also wanted more land they could not find in Europe. Moving on to the neocolonialism of Bali and other areas. With a lot of Indonesia already under control of Spanish influence, the Netherlands were able to set up treaties with different rulers of kingdoms. In 1600, Stephen van der Hagen concluded a treaty with the ruler of Amboina, allowing them to make a castle on the island to export goods from. This began the Dutch East Indies, which formed to gain supremacy in the Asian trading sphere. It was granted monopoly of trade in the regions of the Cape of Good Hope and the Magellan Strait. This allowed the Dutch to create treaties with local rulers as well as set up ports and garrisons in the other countries. Finally, the Dutch were able to install officers of justice in these areas they were heavily trading. This allowed for the neocolonialism to directly take place. 246 years after Stephen van der Hagen created the first treaty in Bali, the Northern Bali campaigns took place, and these were a series of 3 military expeditions that occurred between 1846 and 1849. The first 2 were initially countered successfully by Jalantik, a large city in Indonesia. The king of Bulalang and his family killed themselves in a mass ritual suicide as the Netherlands were advancing south, and this is called the Pupetan. This is also the hallmark of the subsequent Dutch military interventions in Bali. The Dutch then established colonial administrations in northern Bali after conquering. They nominated a member of the royal family as regent and attached him a Dutch controller. The first resident controller was Herr van Bloemen Vanders, who arrived first in August of 1855. His main reforms included the introduction of vaccinations, the banning of self-sacrifice or sudi, the eradication of slavery, the improvement of the irrigation system, the development of coffee production as a cash crop, the construction of roads, bridges, and port facilities for improved commerce and communication. The Dutch also drastically revamped and increased the tax revenues from the people and from commerce, especially of opium. So here neocolonialism is directly in play, as the Netherlands were able to place a Dutch controller in Bali and then put some of their own ideals into the city's governments. With the majority of northern Bali under control by the 19th century, the southern Bali campaigns began 6 years later. On September 4th, 1906, a substantial force of Royal Dutch East Indies Army named the 6th Military Expedition landed at the northern part of Snoor Beach. It was under the command of Major General Rost van Tonningen. Overall, the force managed to move inland without much resistance, and it arrived in the city of Keeshman on September 20th, 1906, which is the bottommost red dot. Obviously, it's not there anymore. There, the local king of Vassal, the king of Badoon, had already been killed by his own priests after he refused to lead an armed resistance against the Dutch. The palace was in flames and the city was deserted. This allowed the Dutch East Indies Army to march straight up that port, near where you see the airport on the map. Upon traveling north to Denpasar, a stray gunshot and an attack by a lance and spear prompted the Dutch to open fire with rifles and artillery. As more people emerged from the palace, the mounds of corpses rose higher and higher. The whole procession numbered hundreds, and it is said that over 100 people, or 1,000 people, were killed in total. And you can see Denspar on the map right there. And after this battle, the Netherlands were able to gain complete control of the island of Bali. After successfully conquering Bali in 1906 and 1908, the Netherlands held Bali for around 50 years until World War II broke out, where Japan occupied Bali as a plan to liberate the East Indies from the Western control. This did work, however, because in 1946 the Dutch constituted Bali as one of the 13 administrative districts of the newly proclaimed State of East Indonesia, a rival state of the Republic of Indonesia, which was proclaimed and headed by Sukarno and Hatta. Bali was included in the United States of Indonesia when the Netherlands recognized Indonesian independence in December of 1949, and this fully ended the Dutch involvement in Indonesia and Bali.